Hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, March 25th, 2019.
I'm Peter Tessie on location in just outside of Kelowna in the mountains.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology, and today's a good day. Rob Gronkowski's out of the league. I haven't felt this good since Pete Metzelaar's retired.
What did Pete Metzelaar do to you?
Scored a lot of touchdowns against the Jets.
And I'm Michael Lagello in suburban Buffalo, and it sucks. And this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Okay, well, let's start with what we ended with on Friday, which I said rather loudly and rather definitively on Friday, and I can say it again now to Philadelphia Flyers fans. It's over. It's done. Stick a fork in them. It's over.
Mike is the face of it's over for the Flyers. He has been.
Yes, and the Flyers lose 3-1 to the Washington Capitals yesterday to follow up the loss to the Islanders on Saturday. Both, I'm not saying this in any particular glee.
No.
I'll just say because I'm not really that way. It's just that when you are last overall or last in the Eastern Conference in January, you're not making the playoffs. Even if you go like 22-1, you're not making the playoffs. So what the Flyers should have done is embraced that and gotten a really good chance at getting a really great talent in Jack Hughes. And instead, they went on a pointless run for 3 months, fooling themselves and their fan base that they were in the playoff race, and they were not. So
yeah, there's no question. I mean, I didn't think they were going to beat the Capitals. So I didn't think there was any hope after the last loss. But yet, they still started Brian Elliott. I don't get it. I don't care if you even think there's a 1/1,000,000th chance that you're going to do it unless we already know that they've already got a contract with Cam Talbot and Cam Talbot's not going to look elsewhere. We don't know that. So my ultimate gut feeling is Cam Talbot's going to want to play. If he doesn't play, he may not want to even be a Flyer, no matter how he feels about Carter Hart. That could be what's at risk here now.
I mean, Peter, this is how nonsensical it is. A guy who you're not going to re-sign, who's an unrestricted free agent, who's been hurt off and on. So there's no situation where like you could be improving his value to trade him. He is a UFA. You trade for a guy who was also a UFA, who you purportedly brought in because him and Carter Hart have some sort of relationship off the ice, to bring him in to be the veteran guy, to be the stabilizing guy for a young goaltender like Hart. And you don't play this guy. What has he played? 1 game, Russ? 2?
2. 1 start, 1 backup.
Okay, so Cam Talbot since February 25th has played twice. And Brian Elliott, who they're going to walk away from, has played probably over 10 games. I don't get it. It's so stupid.
Oh, don't defend him to me, Mike. There seems to be such a massive disconnect between what's going on behind the bench of the Flyers and what the management is trying to do. And I mean, trading for Cam Talbot was curious anyways when it happened, but just this sort of idea that you're trying to make the playoffs, or maybe you thought you could, so you'll do certain things. Like, what's the actual goal here in Philadelphia, and why is that not trickling down to the coach to say, you need to do it this way because this is what we're trying to achieve? Like, there's so many questions here that, the answers could shed some light, and I just don't know if we'll ever find them out until, the off season and maybe a change is made and stuff. But I don't get it. It's bizarre.
Now, the team that the Flyers lost to on Saturday, the Islanders, they righted the ship this weekend by beating the Flyers and then beating Arizona 2-0. I watched a lot of that game. I had a lot of time on Sunday afternoon, so of course I was watching that game. And it was sort of a dreadful goaltenders duel between Robin Lehner and Darcy Kemper. Ended up 2-0, but the Islanders get 4 points on the weekend, and they stay relatively close to the Capitals, now at 96 points for the Caps, 95 for the Islanders. Russ, I mean, they get Lehner back. He was out for a little bit. They went with Grice, and we know that of the two, I think Leonard's had a much better year. I know Grace got one of the 3 stars last week, but I think if they're going to make any kind of run, if they're going to do anything in the playoffs, it's going to be with Leonard in goal. It's not going to be with Grice.
No, it's going to be with Leonard. I mean, I watched how that team played with Leonard, and for the most part, they really stymied the Flyers. The Flyers got a weird kind of carom bounce off the back wall that literally went right into the net practically. So, like even Leonard said, that game should have probably been 5 or 6-1. But the Islanders, again, were just gripping their sticks too tight. They struggle offensively at times. But I think Leonard's the guy, because what Grice can't do that Leonard can is completely block off both sides of the post. He is a guy that hugs the post so well now that with his size, Grice just can't do that. And if his glove is as on as it has been, I like what Leonard looks like the guy of a couple, 3-4 years ago. And right now I've got to go with that guy because the margin of error is very slim for the Islanders in the playoffs in each game. They can't fall below, they can't go beyond 2 goals down in a game. If they do, they're probably not coming back.
Yeah. Pittsburgh is staying close. This is the race right now in the Metro. Washington 96, Islanders 95. Pittsburgh beats Dallas on Saturday. They're at 93. They're all even at 76 games. Carolina is at 91. They beat Montreal 2-1 in overtime on, I think it was Svechnikov scored. And they have a game in hand on all 3. So they could move into a tie with Pittsburgh when they make up that game in hand. I know Pittsburgh plays tonight in New York against the Rangers. Now, Russ, I mean, I've not been a believer of Carolina. I thought the goaltending would fail on them. I thought, they didn't have enough goal scoring. They've proven me wrong. I mean, I'm a little surprised that McElhinney and Mrazek has stood up, but it has, and you have to give them credit.
Yeah, Mrazek's playing like the guy of a few years ago. When I picked Carolina to come out of it and actually get into the playoffs, I didn't know if it was going to be Mrazek. Like I said, I was honest. I thought it would be McElhinney. But I think what's happened over time is with Brind'Amour playing the way they play and the way they push the puck down the ice, and really they're hard to handle in the offensive zone. They have the puck a lot. So I think if the goalies make the key saves, and that's what I was seeing early on, if the goalies make the key saves, they really can stay in games and win games because they do have a good offense. They really have fast players. And Brind'Amour has instilled a lot of confidence in these guys. We knew their decor was good. It's not like they ever had a bad decor. It was their goaltending undermining everything. Now that it's not, they're a good team. Like they've earned everything they've gotten.
Exactly. And I think what it is that we're starting to see that not only are they a good team, they're a dangerous team. And so all the things that people have touted about how great the Hurricanes are with their underlying numbers and stuff are starting to come to fruition on the scoreboard and in the standings with what they're doing, because they're not getting 900 goaltending anymore. And, and good for McElhinney. I think the guy's had a long road of things, and he's sort of finding a nice little groove. And since I saw a tweet earlier this morning that was saying, I can't remember who tweeted it, but they were talking about how since he turned 28, he's been a .915 goaltender, which is basically just slightly above league average or league average. And there's a lot of teams that if they just had league average goaltending, look at where they would be. And Carolina's example number 1,000 of what it means to have just competent goaltending, not outstanding, competent.
Well, I mean, and maybe Monday morning quarterbacking to say this, but I said it when the decision was made. The decision to keep Garrett Sparks ahead of McElhinney was going to cost the Leafs. And I don't know if it would have made up 7 points, but Sparks lost 6 of 7 games. McElhinney had a winning record and a goals against, I believe, of 2.1 and a save percentage in the 930s last year as Anderson's backup. Those numbers this year would put Toronto probably close to being tied to Boston. The difference in their record, I mean, not to load it all on Garrett Sparks, but he's basically a 500 goaltender with a below average goals against over 3 and a below average save percentage. So it's you have to give credit to McElhinney to be able to play at this level with a subpar defense in Toronto last year, and with not a subpar defense in Carolina, but I think a team that was heavily reliant on their veteran goaltender to make the stop that he needs to make. So, they're going to make the playoffs. This is just a question now whether they move up to third in the Metro or even higher, or if they stay in one of the wild card spots. The race for the second wild card, but before we switch to the Atlantic here, Montreal beats Buffalo, gets a point in an overtime loss to Carolina. They're at 88. And as we said, Philadelphia is at 80, so that's 8 points, so sayonara. But Columbus is 2 points behind Montreal with a game in hand. And Columbus won yesterday 5-0 over, let's see, who was it? Vancouver, thank you.
Yeah.
So now, that was a rather definitive victory. Now, the thing is, though, honestly, I look at where Columbus is right now and the way Montreal's been playing going down the stretch. Russ, I'm not comfortable saying it's definitely going to be Columbus.
No, you shouldn't be comfortable. I still get weird signals out of Torts, like he's saying now these are mini seasons. Jarmo Kekalainen sort of threw the gauntlet down. They have the talent. The talent came through yesterday. If the talent comes through for 3 or 4 more games, then they probably will overtake Montreal. But if Montreal keeps playing the way they're playing, like these perfect road games, and Price playing the way he is, Columbus and Montreal could keep winning, and Columbus could be out of the playoffs. Carey Price could steal the playoffs for the Canadians now. He's in position to do it.
This is Columbus.
I had the Canadians making it when we had this chat with Eklund, and I said it was – or actually, and I did – I think it was Todd Cordell on the Hot Stove. We did this, and I think I said it when we were talking with Ek that wonderful afternoon. And I said I think the Canadians are going to push Columbus out. Russ, I think you're bang on. Carey Price is right in the position to sort of put this team on his back and close the door. He's just got to do it.
Well,
it's a terrible position to be in if you're Columbus, because even though you may not have 100% faith, like if you're a fan or a media person watching Montreal, they still have Carey Price.
Well, this is Columbus's remaining schedule. There's 7 games. At home against the Islanders tomorrow. The big one at home against Montreal on Thursday. Yeah. Then back-to-back on the road, Nashville and Buffalo on the weekend. And then finishing up at home against Boston on Tuesday, and then on the road back-to-back Friday, Saturday against the Rangers and Ottawa. So, there's some tough games in there, and that's
some tough games.
Yeah. Now I'm just pulling up Montreal's here to see what their schedule is. They only have 6 games remaining. They play at home against Florida tomorrow. The game against Columbus on Thursday. At Winnipeg on Saturday. At home against Tampa on Tuesday. Washington in Washington on Thursday, and then Toronto on Saturday at home. And Toronto won't have anything to play for, but if it's to eliminate Montreal, I will bet you anything Babcock will put every player in that lineup.
Oh yeah, there's no question he'll try and do that. We'll see. It'll be interesting if it comes down to that. Although Toronto's defense is so bad, they may not be able to contain Montreal anyhow.
Well, that's true. Now,
that's the reality now.
Oh yeah, hey, thank you everyone for coming over to my side, because what have I been saying the last 2 frickin' years? Come on. Okay, in the Atlantic, Tampa is guaranteed the President's Trophy, so we won't even talk about them until April 8th. Boston's at 101 points. They've pretty much locked up second place. The Leafs are at 94, 7 points behind them. So what this weekend, what the last few games have basically locked into places, it's going to be Toronto traveling to Boston for the first round. It's yet to be known whether Babcock is going to give Anderson any kind of rest. He's playing him tonight against Florida. I think it's dumb, but he's going to continue to do it until maybe a little before the end of the season. Maybe he'll give him a game off. I don't understand it, Russ. I think I would alternate your goaltenders right now and give Anderson rest, but I don't know if Babcock's going to do it.
He's probably not. I don't understand it either. I would do it. Babcock's not like that. But I do want to ask a question. Okay, let's harken back to 1992-93 and just ask the question, what does 101 points get you now? So is this 101 point team better than Vancouver's team in the Smythe division that won the division with 101 points? I say no. I think that Vancouver team was better than this Boston team.
Yeah, Peter, you'd have to refresh my memory. I know that the 94 team went to the final. What did the 93 team do? Did they get eliminated in the second round, I think?
The 93 team got eliminated by
LA.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's a tough out.
Yeah. And remember, LA was, I think Gretzky was hurt for half of that year. He came back in the second half or something like that. And I remember, that great Cinderella story that everybody in Toronto.
Here's the roster. So you had Pavel Bure with 110 points and 60 goals, Cliff Ronning, Jeff Courtnall, Trevor Linden, Peter Nedved, Greg Adams, Dixon Ward, Jyrki Lume's on that team, Yuri Slager's on that team, Doug Lister, who would eventually not be on that team.
Kirk McLean.
I think it was Kay Whitmore was the backup.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think Boston has better goaltending, but I think this team is a much better scoring team than what Boston has.
I like Boston's defense better with Chara McAvoy, Carlo, Miller. I mean, I think
you're looking at the 93 Canucks.
Yep.
Who else is on that defense? There's someone else.
Like Lars
Dave
Lindgren.
Dave Babbage was a hell of a
a veteran Dave Babbage. Yeah. Not the Dave Babbage who played, not the Dave Babbage who was the all-star in Hartford. This is the post Philadelphia Dave Babbage, wasn't it?
Right.
I don't remember. If he played in the play, he didn't play in the playoffs for Vancouver against the Leafs in '94. I don't think so. But anyway, I get your point. I'm just saying.
Well, remember they ended the season at 101. Chicago had 109. If Boston gets to 109, I would take the Blackhawks team over this Boston team too.
Mm-hmm. Well,
you know who else was on there who was actually kind of an underrated defenseman, tough as nails, was Gerald Diddick.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he played for Hartford for a while. I think he played for the Leafs for a few years.
Everybody played for the Leafs.
Yeah, back then. Yeah, true. But okay, the only thing on the Leaf page that is Travis Dermott is practicing. He's probably going to get back in the lineup this week. Jake Gardiner is on the ice, but it doesn't sound like he's anywhere close. I think they're hoping that he can get back in the next 2 weeks, but it's encouraging that he's out on the ice. He's wearing a non-contact jersey, but it's different between just skating around and actually taking contact, especially with a back injury. If you take one hit, your back could be done. So, and that's the thing. I don't think they're going to go into the playoffs playing with a iffy Gardner and play six defensemen. I think if he's in the lineup, they might have to go 11-7. Because you could double shift Tavares and Matthews and have your extra defenseman there in case Gardner gets hurt if they play him. They're also apparently going to call up Callie Rosen from the Marlies sometime in the next few days to give him a look before the end of the season. So they're basically, like I said in my blog on Hockey Buzz, the blue line is shuffling right now. Okay, in the West. Winnipeg with a definitive victory over Nashville on Saturday. Was it 4-0, Peter?
5-0. Kyle Connor with Patrick.
Yeah. Now I'll ponder the question that you raised in our chat. If Nashville bows out early, could the axe fall on Laviolette? And I mean, I don't know whether they've started tuning out Laviolette in Nashville like they did on the island or they did in Philadelphia, but they went out and they got Simmons and they got Granlund and they're loaded on defense. And if they lose to a St. Louis in the first round, I don't think it's like a massive upset, but you put 2 and 2 together in terms of a team loading up and then losing in the first round. I mean, it is traumatic.
I do have to throw cold water on one thing though, Mike.
Yeah.
I've been seeing this in texts and online hey, maybe Laviolette gets fired and he goes back to the Flyers. Laviolette doesn't like Philadelphia. He doesn't like the way it ended. He's talked about the way it ended. He barely interviews when he's here. He's very uncomfortable when he's here. He doesn't want to come back and coach this team.
Right. No, I mean, I joked about Edmonton, but
I mean, that's always a possibility, but I honestly don't think Laviolette will lose his job either way.
right. I mean, David Poyle is not somebody with a quick trigger finger. You know,
No,
he proved that with Barry Trotz. So it's, you know, they may lose. I mean, if that happens, you know, but I don't think he'll be fired. But I think there are other coaches.
I think the thing that I think has to be concerning, though, is if the playoffs started today, it's St. Louis versus Nashville. That's going to be a heater of a series.
Yes.
Because St. Louis, as far as I'm concerned, they're playing on house money right now. They shouldn't have been here. They're here and they're loose and Berube's got them. He's got them playing well and just thinking about, you know, he's just done something special there. And Tarasenko starting to look like Tarasenko again. That's a deadly situation for the Preds because, first of all, say they played Winnipeg first round. Well, if you lose to Winnipeg in 6 or 7 games, it's not the same stigma of losing to someone who was literally dead last in the whole entire conference at one point and came back to make the playoffs. There's a different thing there. But also, let's go back and look at what the Preds have done. Stanley Cup finalists, out in the second round. Now, and then they won the President's Trophy last year, and now are struggling to stay ahead of third place in the Central. This is what happens with teams who don't win the Stanley Cup. You tend to not be, particularly in the cap era, you tend not to be able to rebound very quickly and come back around and recapture that. And so what do you do if you're Poyle? Well, you've got some money coming off the cap in your 2 acquisitions in Boyle and Simmons, right? And then you've got Yossi coming up for a new deal. But you've got some other players there that, you know, you've got some exposures long term. You got to look at the roster, but you've also got to go, if I have to adjust the roster now and make some changes because it's not where it should be to be a cup contending team, right. Is Laviolette the right coach? Like, there's more than just the thinking of Laviolette. There's what do we have to do to get this team back to where it is? Who do we have to sign?
Well, I mean, just to your point, I mean, St. Louis was dead last in the NHL on January 1st, and now they're 2 points behind the Preds. It's 90 points for the Preds, 88 for the Blues. Yeah. Winnipeg's leading the division with 94 points. To your point about them, yeah, and maybe we're pre-disastering things here because we're assuming that they're, you know, that Nashville will lose in the first round, and they may you know, but let's just like extrapolate from that for a minute. I honestly think that if you're asking David Poyle to make a decision between re-signing Roman Josi, who he's had there forever, or trading. I mean, first guy I think they would want to trade is Kyle Turris, but good luck trying to find someone to take Kyle Turris after having a bad year last year and not exactly a great year this year. He's been in and out of the lineup. That's gonna be a tough nut to crack in terms of clearing $6 million. You probably have to take salary back. I continue to think that the guy whose time is limited there, if they want to re-sign Josi, unless Josi takes another hometown discount, is PK Subban. Is $9 million, and they can trade him. I mean, they can get something for him. They can get top prospects if they wanted to.
He's getting a TV show, Mike. They may not want to lose their
crap
on the TV show. Come on, Mike.
Zippity doo-dah. You know, hot chicken and Lindsey Vonn. Whoop-de-doo. I mean, come on. But anyway, honestly, the 2-3 matchups in the West are killers. I mean, it's, you know, Nashville St. Louis is one, and then San Jose Vegas.
Yeah,
I'm watching every minute of that series. That is going to be a war.
It's unbelievable, and the team that's going to be sitting there just loving it the most is Calgary.
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
Each other up.
But
and to say it's a Calgary, Colorado first round pick, which is what it's sort of looking to be.
right.
Someone here. Hang on.
I'll put you on mute. Don't worry about it.
If
Okay.
it is that first round matchup, that's a good matchup for both because neither has spectacular goaltending. Calgary could win that series. Might be a bit of a high scoring series, but I think Calgary can win that series.
Well, and it's funny because I look at the two teams that made that big trade, and they sort of follow the same pattern, even though one is much more successful, Calgary, than Carolina. But they're both based on, really, really good defenses. Carolina's offense is a little less than Calgary's because Calgary's got Goudreau and Monahan and Kachuk.
Yeah.
But the point is that Calgary may be the better team in front, but they have that McElhinney and Mrazek might be a better goaltending tandem than Rich and Mike Smith. And I keep coming back to those goaltenders when it comes to Calgary because the great equalizer in a series between Calgary and Colorado is Grubauer or Varlamov might be better than them too.
I don't think so. I think Calgary could get by in that series with their offense. I don't think Colorado's defense can slow the top line down, whereas I think Calgary can slow them down because they do have good defense.
Yeah. So, and then
Peter was the Fuller brush salesman.
What's that?
Was it somebody selling? Was it somebody selling Amway products?
No. It's the guy servicing the hot tub at the condo where.
No, I what I said was the Fuller brush guy. Back when I was a kid, people used to go door to door and sell brushes for your hair. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Great. No wonder there was a spread of cooties. Okay, wild card race. Dallas at 82, Colorado at 81. Arizona, the loss against the Islanders hurts them. They're at 79. They're all Dallas is a game in hand on Colorado, Minnesota, Arizona. So they're only 1 point ahead of the Avalanche, but with that game in hand, they could go ahead.
I was just going to say this is a big night because Dallas is at Winnipeg tonight, and Nashville is playing Minnesota. And Dallas and Minnesota need wins, but Winnipeg and Nashville need wins because they're still only 4 points ahead. Like a Winnipeg win and a Minnesota win is going to be crushing for Dallas and potential Colorado, but also for Nashville. Like it could really mess things up. There's a lot of scoreboard watching for tonight for the Central.
Yeah, Russ, like I said, I watched a lot of the Arizona game. They simply could not beat Leonard. They could not score. They had power plays where they're generating chances and they could not get the puck by Leonard.
But also, I don't love the Demers pairing. I forget who he's paired with.
Goligoski, isn't it?
Goligoski. I don't like that pairing even a little bit. That was a good pairing 2-3 years ago. I don't like it now. And so I think that's a weakness for them too.
Yeah, Minnesota is sticking in there. I think now it's a bridge too far for Chicago, even though they have a game in hand. They're 5 points behind. I saw some commentary on Twitter where I think it was actually the Hawks Twitter that said if we beat Colorado, we're only behind them by 4 points, and then they win in overtime. We're only behind by 5 points. It's like, well, that point means a lot. That could be
Chicago's cooked. I know people were getting a little excited there. Kane's having a great year. Taves has come back. They've made some good trades. They might be able to build off this in the offseason if they can get a free agent defenseman or two. They could maybe do something. They're going to have to buy somebody out. They're going to have to make some tough decisions if they really do want to make the playoffs. If they're going to wait some of these old guys out, they're not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah,
and by old guys, I mean Keith and Seabrook.
Yeah, I can't see a way how they get rid of him. Especially Seabrook, almost $7 million for, I think it's another 5 years. That is a boat anchor. That is something, that takes you to the bottom of the ocean. I don't know how they get, maybe they move Brandon Saad with a year left in his contract, but that's only cap relief for a year.
Yeah.
Well, they kind of are going year to year now, Chicago. There's no other way.
Well, they may, and this is the thing, they may trade Anisimov to create cap space to sign a guy like Strome to a long-term deal now, because after this, they probably can get Strome signed to a 4 or 5 year deal at, like in the $5 million range, because they know he can be an effective number 2 behind Taves. But Anisimov is basically, he's making, I think, 4.5, and he's more of a defensive center, and they may not have room to pay both of them because they're spending their money elsewhere. So, I mean, that'll be interesting how that plays out. Okay, let's talk about some of these signings with a lot of teams, a lot of NCAA teams finishing up their seasons. A lot of players are making their decisions to either stay in college or to leave for the NHL. Now, I know that Bob McKenzie talked about, and I think Pierre LeBrun talked about Adam Fox, who's up for the Hobey Baker, and then they're saying that there's nothing definitive right now regarding him leaving. And if he doesn't leave, if he stays for his senior season, then he goes down the VC track. Then he goes down I
don't think he will. I still think he's going to
right. No, I know that you do, but I'm saying if he stays, then
even if he stays, I still think he's going to sign with Carolina. I don't think he's going to go down the VC path. I don't.
I mean, it would be strange, though, because, Carolina, as we've talked about, they're loaded on defense. It's like it's going to be tough for him.
Today they're loaded. If it puts it off another year, Falk will be gone.
Right.
And
they might trade Dougie Hamilton.
We got to remember, Fox just may want to finish out his curriculum. Yeah. He is going to Harvard. That's a real consideration for him.
Sure.
He's a smart kid. So
I don't know if it's more prestigious than going to Buffalo State College, but we'll see.
My brother went to BU. The other BU, and UAB they call it, and it is.
Yeah. Okay, but three names that decided to sign. We'll start with Joel Farabee, who is apparently leaving Boston U.
Well, everybody's leaving. That's
right, and will sign with the Flyers. Now, you have some thoughts on this. Do you think it's not a good move for him?
I mean, I get that he wants to leave BU because without Fabro and without Ottinger, it's going to be a tough year there. But he's in between. He's a tweener. He had a rough start to the season because he went to a different, jump up in the league that he wasn't really strong enough for. Mm-hmm. Second half was really good. Yes, he was just under a point a game. That's really good for college hockey. It's not completely dominant. I get he's won Rookie of the Year. I just saw him 2 weeks ago in the Beanpot consolation game, and I did watch him over the weekend. He's not dominant at college hockey. He's not. And so I think he's in between here now. So it's going to depend on his summer training. I don't think he is a 100% lock that you say he's a Flyer to start next year.
And he's 19, right? Or is he 12?
Right now he's 19.
Okay, so he probably, if he has a birthday before December 31st, he can go.
It's February.
Okay, so then he can't go to the AHL. No. So he's either going to go to the OHL or.
And that's what I think is going to happen unless he has a really good summer of training.
Right.
Is I think he'll go to the OHL and play more games.
Right.
That's what. If it were up to me, that's what I would recommend. But we'll see what happens. See what he looks like over the summer. That's fine.
And the other BU guy was Dante Fabro, who is apparently going to sign with Nashville. And we've talked about that all year about Fabro and Nashville. And, that might be another reason why they may trade a defenseman because, next year Fabro could step right in and be one of in their top 6.
Right now I'm questioning that. He played a load of minutes for BU, which is great. They weren't a great team. I thought he performed well when I saw him, but he wasn't superstar outstanding, can't miss for the NHL ready yet. So to crack that Nashville lineup and to satisfy Laviolette, he's another one. Let's see what he looks like after the summer because I don't think he's a lock for next year.
Now, the one that I was tracking for a couple years was Joseph Wall, who was a Leaf draft pick in 2016, played on Team USA on their gold medal winner in 2017 and last year as well at the World Juniors. 3 solid years at Boston College. He signs his ELC. I thought the interesting thing about this, Russ, is that they signed him in they're burning the first year. It's going to be he's getting a 3-year entry level, and the first year is this year. So it's only basically a 2-year deal, which I'm sure he used the leverage of I can go back and finish my senior season and go free agent, and they wanted him bad enough that they were amenable to burning a year of entry level.
Yeah, I told you I thought that that's what would happen with him, and I wrote about it. If people want to go to EP Rinkside, I wrote about just that on February 11th.
Yeah,
that he was ready for that next step. So I wasn't surprised. I think this is a good move for the Leafs. We've talked about it off air. I said I can't imagine it going down any other way. So that's a smart move.
Yeah, and they're solid in terms of their goaltending, their organizational goaltending depth with Anderson up top. Sparks, I don't think is solid, but that's personal. But now you have Wool and you have Ian Scott as developmental goaltenders. I still think there's a possibility, and I wanted to bring this up with you, Peter, because it was last week we saw Nick Patan signed to a 2-year extension by the Leafs, and as soon as I saw 2 years, I thought it smacked of something to do with the expansion draft. And to me, that was confirmed when I did a little research and saw that at the end of the 2 years, he's an RFA. All they had to do was qualify him, even though he might be willing to go to arbitration, and he qualifies as being eligible to be exposed for the expansion draft. So I think they like him, but I also think they traded for him and signed him so he could be one of the guys. They need to expose, I think, 2 forwards, 1 defenseman, and 1 goalie that met the certain parameters for the expansion draft. And I have a feeling that that's what's going to be that's Patan's role, is to be one of the guys who's going to qualify for expansion.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I don't think it's going to be hard for teams to do that, because, and I don't think it'll be like to sign a player like a Patan for whoever needs that kind of situation for the expansion draft, simply because one, gives them a job, right? Like, your agent's going to take you and say, look, and if you are picked up by Seattle, you get a fresh start in a fresh organization, and look at how it worked out for everyone in Vegas.
Right.
I think there's no downside for players who maybe have to take a deal like that, and they should. And hopefully, I think, look, it appears that Babcock sees the same thing in Patan as Maurice did, in that it's something doesn't fit for him, and I'd like to see Nick Patan get a bit of a shot with the Leafs. I just, it's a matter of whether Babcock wants to do something now that could help his team longer term by letting him play. I just don't know. I haven't paid attention much other than since I saw that deal, but it sort of appears that he's kind of in the same kind of zone that he was in Winnipeg right now.
Yeah, I think it's more a thing that right now Babcock has got the choice of a lot of smaller forwards when he was looking for that bigger veteran guy to be added at the deadline. I think that's like sort of the philosophical divide, as I've called it, is the crux of the situation between Dubas and Babcock, is the fact that, and Patan is sort of symbolic of that, because he's a 5'9", speedy, skilled forward, and I'm sure Babcock wants a 6'2" banger crasher along the boards in the playoffs against Boston, but he's not going to get that. And I didn't want to bring this up, but I'll bring it up because I think it's going to be something to watch during the playoffs. John Tavares gets cross-checked in the crease by Mark Stahl on Saturday, and nobody did anything. And honestly, it's like, you cannot allow your star players to be abused. And that Chara, at Marchand, that Bergeron, that Bacchus, that these guys will tear your heart out if they have to win. And I don't know whether the Leafs will. The word pushback has been used over and over by me when it comes to them and other teams, and it's like I think it's valid to bring up, because I think that is valuable when it comes to the playoffs. You can't allow your star players to be pushed around without somebody pushing the other side back.
Yeah, it's look. Like, take away the idea of sort of the physical aspect of things, and I think you just hit it right on the head, Mike. And Boston is a team with some major pit bulls in it, right? Guys who just rip your heart out if you give them a chance. Like, and they're not trying, and sometimes it'll be dirty, other times it won't, but they just play with a level of intensity to that side. Who on the Leafs plays that way? And I can think of one name, and I really haven't seen it this year. It's Kadri.
Yeah.
Where has that side of his game been this season?
Well, he's been sort of neutered because his role as a checking forward to be going up against the number one center for the other team has sort of been downplayed. He's now the third line center. They usually match up Tavares against the other team's number one center, and then Matthews sometimes. Kadri's been basically – I think they want Kadri to generate offense to be more of a threat on the third line, and he was 30 goals as a checker, and then this year I think they're expecting secondary.
That's how he got his goals. He made life hell for everyone. That's what he does so well. And I think, come the playoffs, maybe you got to throw Kadri out there and let him go get under Bergeron's skin and just drive him mental. Like, that's the kind of thing. Like, that's the kind of tactical decisions that, you've got to allow coaches have to be open to, because frankly, like, yes, but Kadri's great. And he had 30 goals last year. I picked him in my hockey pool, and I've just been pissed about it because it's not been the same guy. And it's like, having Tavares in, like, so you want Tavares to match up against the other team's top center. That's fine. Tavares, that isn't really what Tavares does well. I mean, he's had a great season. Let's not shoot down what he's done, but that's what Kadri does really well. And he did it really well last year. I'd like to see more of it.
A couple things. Michael Kempney, Todd Reardon, the coach of the Capitals, says Michael Kempney, who was a late season acquisition last year and helped the Caps win their Stanley Cup, he is going to be out long term. They're not specifying the type of injury it is. But, Russ, they made the deal to get Jensen, and that solidified their top six. But now if Kempney's out long term, then you're talking about like guys like Siegenthaler and Christian Juice stepping in and for Kempney. That's a little bit of a drop off. I'm not saying that they can't do it, but I'm saying it's a little bit of a drop off for them.
It is. I mean, look, Christian Juice did play some in the Stanley Cup too, right? So, I think it isn't going to be serious. I'm pretty sure it was an LBI. And so I'm pretty sure it was a knee, and I think that's why they're just going to wait him out, and he'll play in the playoffs, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, he's saying long term, so I don't know if maybe this is the fog of war before the playoffs, and
I don't know if it's the fog of war, but long term, like now till middle of the first round is pretty long. Like, it all depends what your definition of long is.
Yeah. And I just saw this on Reddit, and I think this is a little humorous. I think Rasmus Dahlin is smart, and he knows what to say in Buffalo in terms of what will make him even more popular here. He was asked if he had to be traded today, which team he would want to go to. He says, I want to stay with Buffalo, but I'll answer it like this: anything but Toronto.
Yeah.
Again, I can tell you because I live here, the inferiority complex that the city of Buffalo has about Toronto is palpable. It was present when a lot of people thought the Bills were going to move to Toronto, so much so that they were willing to take some idiot named Trump as the owner. And also, even though the Sabres have had more success and have gotten to 2 Stanley Cup finals in 75 and 99, and had pretty decent success in their 49-year career, they still have an inferiority complex when it comes to the Leafs, even though the Leafs have been a disaster for most of those 50 years. So I don't get it. I don't understand it. I can't understand the psyche of some of the sports fans or people in the area, but whatever.
Look, the Leafs haven't been a disaster, Mike. They've just been planning the parade route for a long time. That's all.
Well, those plans should be shelved until they actually have a team good enough to even imagine being in the Stanley Cup Finals, let alone winning one. All right.
So wait. Are you guaranteeing they're not going to the Stanley Cup this year?
They're not going. They're not. I will not make my prediction until we have our prediction show for the first round. But I will say, I don't think they're beating the Bruins. So if they're not beating the Bruins, they're not going to the Stanley Cup Final. So
that's true. Yeah, I can put that together. Yeah.
There you go. Okay. All right, we'll cut it short. We'll cut it short right there. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.